September 14th, 1967. Quang Ngai Province, South Vietnam. The jungle is already awake before the sun clears the ridge. Cicadas scream from the canopy, and the air clings to the skin like wet cloth. Mud sucks at boots with every step. A column of U.S. Army infantry moves slowly along a narrow trail that doesn't exist on any map. At the front of the formation walks a small, barefoot man in a faded black shirt and rolled trousers. He carries no rifle. Only a short machete hangs loosely in his right hand. His name is Nguyen Van Lum. To the men behind him, he is simply the scout. Staff Sergeant Robert Red Malloy, platoon sergeant, watches Lam's shoulders more than the jungle. The man walks too calmly. He doesn't flinch at the crack of distant gunfire or the thump of artillery miles away. He pauses, lifts a hand, tilts his head slightly, and the entire American column freezes. Malloy raises his fist. The men drop to one knee. Safety catches click softly. 10 meters ahead, the trail narrows where bamboo roots twist across the mud. Lam crouches, brushes leaves aside with 2 fingers, and reveals a thin wire stretched ankle-high between 2 saplings. A grenade trap, old, rusted, but still live. Malloy exhales slowly. 1 step further, and the lead-fire team would have been torn apart. This is why Lum is here, and this is exactly why no one fully trusts him. The platoon belongs to the Americal Division, operating in one of the most contested regions of the war. Quang Ngai is honeycombed with Viet Cong tunnels, supply routes, and villages that shift allegiance with the tides of survival. The maps issued at brigade headquarters are outdated the moment they're printed. Trails appear overnight. Ambush sites move with the moon. American units learned this the hard way. Earlier that year, 2 companies had followed a secure route marked on aerial reconnaissance photos. They walked straight into a well-prepared L-shaped ambush. Claymores, crossfire, mortars zeroed in advance. 18 men died in under 5 minutes. After that, commanders began doing something officially discouraged, quietly tolerated, and deeply feared. They hired local Vietnamese scouts, men like Lam. Lam was recruited through the district chief, a South Vietnamese official whose loyalty was measured in American aid shipments. Lam claimed he was a farmer, that his family had lived near these hills for generations, that he knew which paths flooded in the monsoon and which stayed dry, where the jungle floor could hide punji pits, which villages whispered to the Viet Cong at night. He also admitted something else, in a low voice, eyes on the ground. "My cousin fought with them," he said. "He is dead now." No one asked how. The paperwork listed Lum as a Kit Carson Scout, a program designed to employ local personnel as trackers and guides. On paper, it sounded practical. On the ground, it felt like gambling with loaded dice. Every man in the platoon knew the stories. Scouts who led patrols into ambushes, guides who vanished minutes before contact, interpreters who passed information by night. Bodies found later with execution-style wounds, killed by the Viet Cong for helping Americans, or by Americans who stopped trusting. Malloy had served 2 tours already. He trusted no one he hadn't watched bleed. And yet, here he was, letting a barefoot civilian walk point. The patrol moves again. Humidity fogs the air, leeches cling to socks. The jungle smells of rot and gun oil. Lam never looks back, but he knows exactly how far the Americans are behind him. He sets a pace that keeps them alert, but not exhausted. When birds scatter suddenly, he stops. When the forest goes quiet, he stops longer. Once he points silently to a patch of disturbed earth near a fallen log. Malloy signals for engineers. They uncover sharpened bamboo stakes, punji pits smeared with excrement. Infection would have killed slower than the stake. The men begin to notice something unsettling. Lam isn't just avoiding danger, he's reading it. He knows where the Viet Cong would set an ambush, not just where they already have. He avoids ridgelines that offer good fields of fire. He refuses to cross streams at obvious choke points. When the platoon commander asks why, Lam simply says, "Too good for killing." That answer chills more than it reassures. As the day wears on, tension grows. Private Daniel Foster, 19, clutching his M16 too tightly, whispers to his buddy, "You think he's counting us?" Nobody laughs. Malloy hears it and says nothing, because the truth is worse. If Lam wanted them dead, they would already be dead. One wrong turn, one missed wire, one shouted warning a second too late. Trust in Vietnam is not built on belief. It is built on survival. And survival, today, is wearing bare feet and walking 10 meters ahead, where the first bullet will land. By late afternoon, the platoon reaches its objective without contact. No ambush, no casualties. Just sweat, fear, and the echo of footsteps through jungle that wanted them gone. As the men establish a perimeter, Malloy watches Lam sit alone on a log, sharpening his machete with a smooth stone. Malloy realizes something uncomfortable. The most dangerous man in the platoon is not the one carrying the rifle. Night settles fast in Quang Ngai. The jungle doesn't fade. It closes. Darkness pours between tree trunks, thick and complete, swallowing shapes at 20 meters. The platoon's perimeter tightens. Claymores are set. Trip flares wired low. Radios whisper in short bursts, careful not to carry. Lam is told to sleep inside the wire. That order alone speaks volumes. If the scout runs, he dies first. He doesn't argue. He curls up near a tree root, machete within reach, eyes half closed but never fully asleep. Malloy notices his chest rise and fall in slow, controlled rhythm, the sleep of a man used to waking instantly. Above them, helicopters thump somewhere far off. Artillery flashes briefly on the horizon, turning clouds orange. Somewhere in the dark, another unit is making noise, drawing attention away. This is when betrayal usually happens. Not in daylight, not on the trail. At night. The Americans have learned the pattern through blood. A scout walks point all day, flawless, finds traps, avoids danger, builds trust. Then, after dark, he slips away, or signals with a mirror shard, or whispers into the jungle. 30 minutes later, mortars fall. Or a probe tests the wire, or a full assault comes screaming in from the trees. The risk is never theoretical, it is statistical. Between 1966 and 1969, U.S. units increasingly relied on local scouts, Kit Carson scouts, regional forces guides, village trackers. Commanders didn't like it, but they needed it. The jungle negated American advantages. Radios failed. Air support couldn't see through triple canopy. Maps lied, local men didn't, but local men also lived here. Their families were here, and the Viet Cong never forgot that. Malloy checks the perimeter personally, boots sinking into damp soil. He pauses near Lam, pretending to adjust a claymore wire. "You try to run," Malloy says quietly, not looking at him. "You won't make 3 steps." Lam opens one eye. "I know," he replies in halting English. "VC same." Malloy studies his face in the faint glow of a covered flashlight. No fear, no bravado. Just fact. That's what makes it worse. The platoon commander, First Lieutenant James Harrington, 24, and on his first combat tour, reviews the day's route on a grease-stained map. Lum crouches beside him, pointing at nothing the Americans recognize. "Here," Lum whispers, tracing a curve through blank green. "Old trail, not on map. VC move rice at night." Harrington hesitates. "How many?" Lum shrugs. "Enough." Malloy watches Harrington's jaw tighten. Intelligence like this is gold, but it is also bait. Follow it, and you might intercept a supply line, or walk straight into a prepared kill zone. Harrington nods slowly. "We'll observe only," he says. "No movement." Lum inclines his head. Agreement, or relief, or calculation. Just after midnight, the jungle shifts. Not noise, absence. Insects stop. Birds go silent. The night tightens like a held breath. Malloy feels it before he hears it. A soft click, trip flare. White light erupts at the perimeter, hissing, bathing the trees in harsh brilliance. Shadows jump. Muzzle flashes bloom. Someone yells. Malloy is already moving. Figures break from the undergrowth. 3, maybe 4. Probing, not charging. AK fire snaps. An M60 answers, tearing bark apart. The contact lasts seconds. The figures vanish as quickly as they appeared. Silence returns. No casualties, no bodies, just confirmation they were watched. Malloy swings toward Lom, rifle half raised. The scout hasn't moved. He sits exactly where he was, eyes open now, listening. His head turned slightly toward the direction the contact came from. "Not attack," he says quietly. Test. Malloy's finger tightens on the trigger. How the hell do you know? Lum taps his ear. Too few. No shouting. They count you. Malloy lowers the rifle, slowly, because Lum is right, and because if he were lying, they would already be dead. By morning, the patrol withdraws without incident. No ambush, no betrayal. The intelligence Lum provided later matches aerial surveillance, a supply route exactly where he said it would be. Trust inches forward, reluctantly. But the unspoken truth remains. Every step with a local scout is a negotiation between survival and suspicion. In Vietnam, the jungle doesn't care which side you're on. But the people living in it always do. September 16th, 1967. Dawn. Mist clings low to the jungle floor, rolling in pale sheets between the trees. The platoon moves again, boots muffled by wet earth. The firefight from the night before has already faded into the background noise of the war, logged, reported, forgotten by higher headquarters. But not by Lum. Malloy notices it immediately. The scout's pace has changed, not slower, cautious. His machete never stops moving now, brushing aside vines with deliberate care as if the jungle itself has grown teeth overnight. Something has shifted. The trail they're following bends sharply toward a cluster of low hills. Lum stops and raises two fingers. Danger, not immediate, but close. He crouches and presses his palm flat against the ground, feeling vibrations the Americans can't sense through their boots. People, he murmurs, not VC. That answer confuses everyone. If not Viet Cong, then who? They find out 20 minutes later. A small village emerges from the foliage, half a dozen thatched huts, smoke rising from cooking fires. Chickens scatter as the Americans appear, women freeze mid-motion. Children stare wide-eyed, old men watch without expression. This village isn't on the map. Harrington signals a halt, weapons lower but remain ready. Malloy's eyes scan rooftops, tree lines, doorways. The place feels wrong, too quiet, too still. Lum doesn't move forward, he steps back. Not good, he whispers. Harrington frowns. Why? Lum hesitates. The pause stretches. Malloy notices sweat bead at his temple. My uncle here, Lum finally says, he talked to VC. The words land hard. If that's true, the village is compromised. If it's a lie, then Lum is diverting them, for reasons no one can see. Malloy steps closer, voice low. You knew this place was here, Lum nods once, and you didn't say anything. Another nod, silence thickens. This is the line every scout walks eventually. The platoon establishes overwatch instead of entering the village. Harrington radios higher command, requests aerial recon. The reply crackles back, negative. No assets available. Continue mission. The Americans wait. So does Lum. Minutes stretch into an hour. Smoke drifts lazily upward. No movement, no signals, no gunfire. Malloy watches Lum from the corner of his eye. You protecting them? He asks quietly. Lum doesn't answer right away. They are not soldiers, he says finally. They live. Malloy clenches his jaw. So do we. Lum looks at him then, really looks at him. Yes, he says. That is problem. This is the reality no training manual prepares you for. Local scouts don't choose sides the way Americans imagine. They choose survival. Today, tonight, tomorrow. Sometimes both sides at once. Lum knows the Viet Cong visit this village. He also knows American artillery could erase it in minutes. His value to the platoon keeps his family alive for now. His cooperation with the Viet Cong might do the same. He isn't loyal. He is trapped. The standoff ends when a distant helicopter passes overhead, unseen but unmistakable. The village reacts, subtle, but Lum notices. A woman disappears into a hut. A man ducks behind a fence. Lum stiffens. They saw you, he says. VC will come tonight. Harrington makes a decision. They pull back, bypassing the village entirely. No sweep, no search, no contact. As they withdraw, Malloy watches Lum closely. You just saved them, Malloy says. Lum shakes his head. No, I saved you. That afternoon, The platoon moves through terrain no American patrol has walked before. Narrow goat paths, dried creek beds hidden under foliage, roots invisible from the air. Lam guides them unerringly. Twice, he diverts the platoon away from perfect ambush sites. Once, he freezes them inches from a pressure plate mine. Each time, trust grows. Each time, suspicion grows with it. Because no one knows how much Lam isn't telling them. Near sunset, they stop on high ground. Harrington studies the map, then Lum. "You could disappear right now," Harrington says. "Why don't you?" Lum considers the question. "Because VC think I help you," he says. "And you think I help VC." He smiles faintly. "If I run, both kill me." Malloy realizes the truth in that moment. The scout isn't the weakest link. He is the most exposed. Walking 10 meters ahead means facing American bullets and Viet Cong knives, depending on who stops trusting first. As the sun bleeds out behind the hills, Malloy assigns Lam a position near the center of the perimeter again. Not mercy, insurance. And as darkness closes in, everyone understands the same unspoken fact. If betrayal comes, it will come from someone who has already risked everything. September 18th, 1967, pre-dawn. Rain starts without warning, a hard drumming sheet that flattens the jungle and turns the ground into liquid. The platoon moves anyway, ponchos slick, rifles wrapped, radios barely functional. Every sense dulls except fear. This is the kind of weather Viet Cong units love. Visibility collapses, sound becomes meaningless. A man can be 10 meters away and vanish. Lam leads them into it without hesitation. He avoids ridgelines, slips through shallow ravines, uses trees as cover, not from bullets, but from being seen at all. Once, he drops to one knee and presses his ear to a fallen log, listening to vibrations carried through wet wood. "People," he whispers, "waiting." Malloy signals halt. The platoon melts into cover. Minutes later, figures ghost through the rain exactly where Lam said they would have been. Armed, moving carefully, unaware the Americans are watching from 20 meters away. No shots are fired. No one dies. That restraint saves lives on both sides. Later that morning, they reach extraction without incident. Helicopters punch down through the rain, rotors tearing leaves free. As the platoon boards, Malloy looks back at the jungle, at the paths they never walked, the ambushes that never happened. Lam climbs aboard last. At base camp, the scout is paid in cash, damp bills counted twice. No ceremony, no thanks. No paperwork beyond a signature no one can read. Before leaving, Lam turns to Malloy. "Tomorrow," he says, "I not come." Malloy nods. He already knew. "Be careful," he says. Lam smiles, small, tired. "You too, Sergeant." Then he disappears into the wire, back into a war that will not remember his name. Years later, Malloy will try to explain Vietnam to people back home. He will talk about heat and fear and the jungle. He will talk about helicopters and mines and nights that never ended. But when asked how they survived places no map could describe, he will think of a barefoot man walking 10 meters ahead, trusted just enough to follow, never enough to relax. Because in Vietnam, survival was not about loyalty. It was about knowing who walked first.